Yeah. Hello. People coming into this room. As I explained, Sultan, I will be filling the void of people getting used to the interface with um, a ramble of not much content. Okay, for people who have not used Livestorm before, this is your typical webinar software. So you'll find all the nifty features that you need in here. There's a chat, there's a questions box where you can put your questions. We might or might not have a poll in between. If you want to, you can maximize my face or Sultan's face, or in a minute or two also Sultan's presentation. And while you're at it and clicking all the buttons, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, where you are, what you had for lunch or breakfast or dinner, something, but at least maybe where you're from. It's always interesting to know where people are logging in from. I'm based in Hamburg in the airfocus office. I mean, we're a fully remote company, so it's like me and the other 5 people who are in Hamburg. And as I learned, Sultan is in Amsterdam, which is also very nice. Have you always been living in Amsterdam? Like you're Amsterdam kind of resident?
No, I'm here for 6 years. It's been, I think, one of the locations where I spent the most. I traveled and worked in quite many countries.
That's really cool.
But Amsterdam is cool.
Amsterdam is very cool.
Literally cool now. It's quite cold.
Yes, it's freezing in Europe at the moment. It's really cold. I mean, the AJ from Finland probably is like, guys, whatever. It's like, whatever, you're -5. That's not cold. Yeah, I had a very random date in Amsterdam once with my wife, with a couple of people, and then we went to the American Book Center and bought like 10 books and a bag that we still have. It's a very fond memory of Amsterdam. Cool. I think most people have logged in and got used to the interface, so I think you can start sharing your screen. By the way, I'll just be moderating. The show is actually run by Sultan. I'll try to incorporate your guys' questions that you can put in the question box in between. We love these formats to be interactive from product managers for product managers. So the more you ask, the more you interact, the more value you can get out of this webinar. Obviously, you'll get the recording afterwards, so you can check the slides again, zoom in, etc. But other than this, I'm very happy that we got Sultan from Miro today to share a little bit about the scaling of product discovery and delivery. And from what I previewed in the slides, it's going to be actually very, very interesting. And I'm very interested in everyone's opinions and how it fits to their companies, their products logic. Other than this, Sultan, I think you can take it away for us.
Great. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all in this session. And I just shared with you the link to the board. If you want to go there, if you want to have 2 tools at the same time to use, you can do that. I think the beauty is that you can actually comment and ask questions related to any specific part of the talk. Or I can check them after the presentation as well. And in this talk, I want to go into the topic of scaling product discovery and delivery, specifically how we do that in Miro. And to make it engaging for all of us, as Johannes mentioned, feel free to ask questions, and we will be happy to go into them. And I want to start with a simple question. What do you think are the responsibilities of a PM? So there will be a poll that you can see in the tool. So just go ahead, choose your option, and we'll look into that a little bit later. All right. I think given that we are the PM crowd over here, I think many of us came to become a product manager from different angles. Many times I see that people go into product management after starting their own company, or go into development or different parallel position first, and then exploring the product management while they see it in practice. And I did a little bit of everything. I started my own company back in 2011. It was in Kazakhstan. I failed before I succeeded, but luckily I could learn quite a lot of things along the way. I also was a developer, but for a very short time, because I quickly understood I wanted to be closer to the business. And I think the common theme of my experience is that I am quite close to marketplaces always, been it at booking.com or now at Miro, where I'm doing the ecosystem around the main product. But what is Miro? I will be curious if the people in this room have heard or have worked with Miro. So just post yes or no. Do you know what is Miro? I'm always curious to ask this question, and it always amazes me how the perspective of the product is in different types of the social event. Miro has now more than 45 million users. And I joined Miro at the beginning of pandemic, just in time to experience the tremendous growth of the company. Just imagine, I saw how the company could grow its customer base by 9 times. And also the headcount grew by more than 8 times. I remember when I joined in Amsterdam, I knew every single person by name because there were only 40 people in Amsterdam. And now it's just not possible because only in Amsterdam we have more than 900 people.
Wow.
It was exciting. It was really energizing, but it was also really, really challenging. With such a big team now, located all across different hubs, we started taking much more time to make decisions. Teams found it really hard to align on goals and initiatives. And to support this kind of growth of the company, we needed to understand how to scale, how we do product. So you can see how close this topic of scaling product discovery and delivery to us in Miro. But before I go into the topic, can I see what is the
poll? Yes.
Yeah, the poll. I need to actually submit my vote first.
Yes, you need to give the right answer because otherwise you are not going to see the result.
Okay. So what I see is that it's quite dispersed. It's more or less same for all the answers. And I think this is more or less expected because in reality, it's the responsibility is all of that, right? And in Miro, we split them into these kind of 2 things. I think it was introduced by Steve Smith. The PMs are responsible for building the right thing, and then they're responsible to build the thing right. In Miro, we have these 2 as 2 distinct things. One is discovery, and actually there is no building, almost no building. You just need to discover the right thing. And then a distinct separate piece is a delivery. So we'll go into detail of how we do that at Miro. The first one is delivery. And the reality is that as your company grows, and now, especially now, you have so much uncertainty in the world. So it's really important to pay close attention to what you prioritize, what goes in development. And if you read the book from Marty Kagan about he has 4 big risks mentioned in his book Inspired. So discovery for Miro is all about risk mitigation. In his book, he talks about the value risk, which is, will this be valuable to users if you solve the problem? And if this is valuable, what kind of connection to company goals you have if you solve this problem? And then only after you understand that it's valuable, you also contribute to company goals, you can check if users will find out how to use it. And also you need to understand whether it's feasible with current resources, with current knowledge, with current people that you have in the room. Can you solve this problem? So the 4 questions fall quite nicely into 2 buckets. One is discovery of opportunity, and second one, discovery of a solution. And these are 2 distinct phases. It makes sense to separate them because people tend to jump into the solution discovery because it's a fun bit. We like ideating, brainstorming, and looking into the future, how the user experience can look differently. But then the crucial bit is often missed, which is this worth doing at all? Is this the one that we do now? Because only then can we go and think about the solution. Also, Miro deliberately separates these 2 because the solution discovery is much more expensive. In solution discovery, it's not only the product manager or designer, it's usually you need to engage the engineering, legal, and all other parts of the business. So it's much more expensive. And that's why you don't want to go into the solutioning before you say this opportunity or the problem is the one that you need to solve now. So how do we structure this kind of thinking, the phases? And we use the PADs, product alignment documents. I'm quite sure in this room we will have people who use PRDs, so the product requirement document, and it's more or less the same thing. For us, it's the alignment because we had so many teams. We have Amsterdam, we have Berlin with development. We have also quite a lot of product marketing in the US, and it's really hard to align. So that's why we call it alignment. So what it is, for us, PAD is a way to deliver the customer value. It's a way to align across different teams located, as I said, in different hubs, and to structure our thinking. Simply, it's a tool that helps us ask all the right questions. And some of the questions we already mentioned, and we'll talk about them in a minute. But the thing is that we split the PAD into phases, the opportunity phase and the solution phase. Actually, let me give you an example. This is the template that we have in Miro, and the way Miro does it now is in Confluence. I don't know why we chose Confluence, but it's a document. And the document, the product alignment document starts with problem discovery. And we call it PAD 0 or some kind of phase 0, which is all about the problem statement. For whom you are solving the problem. You should be really clear why you believe it's a problem that you need to solve now against any 10 or even 20 other problems that for sure this team has. And then you need just to name possible solutions so that people around you understand. Everyone thinks visually, so it's important to clarify visually how the solution could look like. So at this phase, we know that, okay, this problem, this opportunity is the one that we need to prioritize now. So we go into the product review. For big initiatives, it's a meeting. For smaller initiatives, it can be just a Slack message. And then we give our essentially feedback. We challenge each other. And in the end, it's a go. Everything looks good. Let's solve this problem. Or it can be, hey team, this doesn't sound like a big enough problem. Or we don't believe you looked into the customer needs. So go back and come back with the refined PAD 0.
Question to this.
But for the, I'm sorry.
I just a question as you're explaining this. Is it
Sure.
that you're like for every idea that you get or every like insight that gets like pushed through to a team, you do like the PAD 0, or you have like kind of a pre-sort to be like, okay, no, we're not going to do like the PAD 0 for like everything that's here, but just like specific initiatives or specific maybe even features. I don't know. Like, is it, yeah? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we debated quite a lot about that. In the end, we decided that it should be for every single initiative, but sometimes you don't need to do product reviews. You just need one pager, and it's not because someone will read it and say, hey, this is not a good idea. It's for the team to document what they're doing. It's for the team to structure their thinking, but no one will like serve as a police and then come to you and check all your documents.
Yeah,
For every initiative, there should be at least one page.
Yeah, I think like this, like if you're very rigorous about this, it really helps you also, because like sometimes, I mean, everybody always has like more ideas than they can execute upon, and like more things that are reasonable to like achieve a certain strategic goal, right? And then being like, okay, here's because then the framework can actually make it easier, right? Because then it's actually like a heuristic that you can apply. Be like, no, let's quickly go through this, even if it just takes like 15 minutes, and be like, because then it's also comparable, right? Because to me, sometimes in everyday product management work, it can easily feel like, we already know, we don't have to go through it. But in the end, like it's easy to forget, or like some people are not on board. So I think that's like, it's really spot on to be like going through this with discipline.
Yeah, it might sound or look like it's too much of effort. One pager takes for me like 10 minutes, and it's problem statement, who is the audience, and success criteria. So some kind of main metric. So it's essentially if you're doing hypothesis testing, is the hypothesis definition, and then it also helps bring people to the same page, because everyone thinks about the problem in different ways, right? So like let's meet for the coffee means let's have a Zoom call, let's indeed go to the coffee bar and drink coffee. So everyone has their own assumptions, and the same for the product problems that we are solving.
So because Anja Ban also asked about this, just to clarify, like to be super specific and clear about this, what kind of criteria do you actually apply so that you use the PAD 0? Is there like any that go out of it, or you just go like, no, everything that's like on this list, we apply the PAD 0, and if it's a list, like how does it get on the list?
You mean what sections should be part of PAD 0?
No, what kind of like list items, like features, initiatives, like you said every initiative, right? Every initiative should have a PAD 0, but like what becomes an initiative basically? What's the criteria for something to be an initiative that has a PAD 0?
Yeah. Usually we look into the effort. So if you have capacity of 100%, and then what you're going to be spending on this kind of initiative will take only 0.1%. Obviously, you don't need to have a product review. You don't need to have, the leadership team to challenge you. But if it's something that takes half of time for the team, then it should go into product review. So we grade essentially like t-shirt sizing, small, medium, large. And if the effort is large, definitely goes into the product discovery.
Cool. Thanks.
Product review discovery. So, and actually, I will in a minute. I will share some of the learnings and some of the pieces of suggestion that we have in Miro based on all the experience so far with PADs or PRDs. So the PAD1, quickly, PAD1 is the solution discovery. So you're not building anything, but if you are investing into a problem and it's big effort, as we just discussed, you need to prepare for the PAD1 all the information, data insights, customer interviews, user research, market analysis. everything that will help you frame the proposed solution. And obviously, while you do that, you'll have rejected solutions. So some other options that you consider it, and then you reject it and you say why. Very important that at this phase, you consider dependencies and you have the mitigation plan. So some kind of, if you go into that, we expect these kind of risks, but that's how we will solve them. And there is also product marketing person who is part of the PID1, and there is a collaboration between product manager and the product marketing manager to think about how this solution will be delivered to the customer, which segment, and the release plan. And then it goes into delivery, so development, implementation, and at some point the team comes back with PID2. It can be a Slack message, or it can be just a document that reflects on the success, whether it's failure, whether it's successful, whether iteration is needed.
Mm-hmm. I have a question. What's the conversion rate from a PAD 0 to a PAD 2?
It should be close to 100%. Big, but what I'm emphasizing here, that PAD2 is not always success. You should have a lot of PADs twos that go into PAD1 again. And then there will be learnings, refinement of the solution, and then again into implementation.
That makes sense.
And that's a very good question, because we saw quite a lot in the beginning that for some reason, PAD1, PAD2 launch, which means that there is no failure, so something is wrong. And that's a big red flag. Either we are not assessing the results correctly, or we are super lucky with that with 100% you get success.
Miro
but now we are looking into that.
I mean, Miro is a successful company. I would give it to you guys, you know, like 100% success rate on product discovery. But maybe it's just the different, you know, like in delivery, you want like 100% of the things that you like really locked into, you want them to be successful. In discovery, you might even want it the other way around, right? To be like, no, we really just want the best things that we discover to go into delivery. So like having like this return rate high might even be a good thing, because it really gets the best things into delivery. One last question, since I'm already talking about the slide. Rebecca is asking if you have a couple of examples of success metrics for the PAD 0.
The examples of success metrics, there are numerous. The one that I'm using, because I'm working on the ecosystem product, is the usage of applications and integrations. So we are building essentially Apple Store for Apple, and we are building Apple Store for Miro. We are using the creativity of all the developers outside of Miro, so that they can come and bring extensions, they bring new experiences to the users of Miro. So for us, if we have more usage by the end user, then it's some kind of leading indicator that the user is getting value from ecosystem, from community. Miro also looks, essentially, we have this so-called aha moment, more like the main product, so this canvas, the board. And the aha moment is the moment when the user understands Miro, right? So it's like, imagine you're new, you never heard, you don't have team members who use Miro. So you come and it's like, you will be a bit lost. So we try to onboard this kind of user step by step. And at some point, the user understands, okay, here's what Miro is about. Here's what I can do that with this product, and what kind of value I can get from the product.
Yeah.
So aha moment, as we call it, is a moment when the user becomes more engaged, and it's really important for us.
Cool. Thanks.
So yeah, I wanted to share a couple of learnings. One we already discussed, so which initiatives go into product review. Another one is that this kind of culture question. When we do product reviews, it's not this kind of political discussion, hey, I want to ask the question just for the sake of it. It's the radically candid culture. So you should build this culture to make sure people are free to challenge each other. And they're challenging because they want to make Miro in general better. And then you will have the opportunities, the problems prioritized that are good for the customer, good for the business. And then a little bit about phase 2, so the solution discovery. We try to give more room for teams to do whatever they need, to use their creativity to come up with the solution. And the important thing, as we also discussed, that failure should be okay. PAD2, PAD1. If PAD1, PAD2 launch is happening, then something is wrong with this kind of culture beat. Really, really important. So at this point, you have discovered the problem, the opportunity. And then you also found out a solution for this opportunity. So what happens next in Miro? Next comes the delivery. And the problem with delivery, and especially for companies like us, and it's some kind of sad reality. I haven't seen any company that grows where the speed of delivery stays as high as it was when they were a smaller company. So there is usually a tech debt that comes from times when you were smaller and all you wanted to bring more features and faster. So you have this tech debt, but you also have more stakeholders, you have more teams. So you need to have alignments, you need to communicate more. But also you have more than just power users, right? And those that are not power users, that they are quite often risk averse and change averse. So the main question at this point, how you deliver, is how you can sustain the speed of delivery. And the speed of delivery requires discipline. It requires discipline in decision making, discipline in prioritization, and discipline in dependency management. So let's talk about all of them. And I start with my favorite, the decision making, because it's a crucial bit. Again, if you're a smaller company, I think many of us were in those situations. To make a decision, you go into the room, you have 5-10 people, and then you come up with the solution right away. And in general, it's a good approach. But the downside of this approach is that it's dependent too much on consensus. Right? So all those 5-10 people need to consent that it's a good decision. The problem with consensus is that consensus doesn't scale. And I believe that's the main job of a product manager, is to facilitate decisions. Probably you shouldn't be making all decisions yourself, but you should be the enabler. You should connect the dots, and you should make sure that the group is making decisions. Also, in reality, PMs know what's happening with marketing. They know what's happening with engineering. They know what's happening with design. So they have more knowledge, and they, in most cases, they are the main expert. So it makes sense that PMs don't wait for others to make decisions, but try to make decisions themselves, if they're confident, obviously. And as you scale as well, if you have more than 1 or 2 teams, you need to accept that some decisions will be made without you, and you won't agree with those, especially if you are not invited for this discussion. The culture bit here is that you still commit to whatever was decided without you. Or you can escalate, definitely. You can come back to this group and say, hey, what's happening? I don't agree. Let's discuss. But you need to commit. You don't need to stop the process. And then the notion about one-way, two-way doors decisions. Last week, we were planning already for the next year, and there were multiple options that we could go for. Then they were converging into 3-4 options, and they were looking equally good. But we still spent time on pros and cons of those initiatives. So at this point, what we try to remind ourselves is that the hardest decisions are about equally good options. So you need to just make a call, choose one, and go ahead.
I so much agree. So true. And it's especially fun if it's actual decisions. You know, if you're like, if there's like 5 options and you can only pick 2, then it's actually fun. You know, if there's like 5 options and 3 are not good anyways, then it's like, okay, good, we're gonna pick the 2 good ones and go. But if you have 5 great options and then you need to make a decision, you know, like there's actual stakes, then I think decision making is so great. And the discussion that goes with, like, you go into the room and you're not sure what's going to happen, and you're like, boom, made a decision, we committed, let's go. I think that's a very good point in decision making in general.
And the group feels so much relieved after someone is making a call and makes a decision. So
yes.
A couple of learnings also from Miro. I think this group definitely knows that data helps with removing assumptions, removing opinions from the table to make decisions. But what we learn is that many times you don't need to have 100% certainty or 100% accurate data. So don't go into paralysis analysis. In many cases, 70% or more or less is enough. So don't wait for 100% certainty. And my quite the approach that I like quite a lot is the constraint approach, and the constraint can be different ways. So again, coming back to my example from last week, the decision was started by a couple of people, then it grew to 4 or 5, and it was still manageable. But then at some point, I found myself in the room with 15 people. And
Where
that
are you
was not
coming
manageable
from?
at all.
Who invites you?
They all have great input, but it's not moving anywhere. So if you have the possibility to bring back to 4 or 5 people, do it. It will help you proceed with the decision. And also the time box constraint. So what we do, we say by the end of this week, we need to make this decision. And then we work backwards. We say, okay, to make this decision, we need to meet as this group of 4 people on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday we review data. On Thursday, we come up with the draft decision. And Friday, we actually decide. So time boxing really works. And then finally, I would leave you with this quote for the decision making, that you always need to drive a decision. And this is actually from my to-do list, a reminder I had for myself every day. Because
that's Todoist, right? The tool.
It's a Todoist, yes.
Yeah. I saw the preview of the slides. I was like, I know this design. It's like, it's Todoist now. Oh, cool. That's really cool to have it as a daily reminder. That's awesome.
So the reality is that whatever you're doing now will change, and it will change not in 3 years. It will change in 6, 8 months maybe. So it makes sense not to wait. It's better what you have now, the best option. Just do it now. It will evolve. Don't stick to coming up with 2 years plan that will be ideal. It never stays ideal.
I would put that on a poster. So it's a very good mantra. There's one question to the decision making though, from Dan. He asks like, how do you know it's a 70% certainty this decision, right? Like, how do you make the call if like, is this accurate enough, or like, should we do some more, either analysis or data collection?
This is already analysis paralysis. So how do you measure that you have 70%? If you're, for example, if you're digging into data yourself and then you're quite sure that this data is correct, then it's already 100%. But if you say that we need to check one more data point, but this data point is not the one that will change considerably the approach, then you already have at least 50%. So then you just navigate in this kind of like approach. You just see what you have from your possibly data analyst, and you can ask actually the group, what do you think our accuracy at this point? And it will never be 100%, obviously, but many times when we ask this question, we say that it's for sure more than half, more than 50%.
One thing I also realized is like, once you're talking more about the accuracy of the data rather than the availability of the data, you're always also in some stage of like, yeah, we need to look at our data model at one point, but now this is the data we have. Yes, there's some uncertainty in it, but let's move on with this decision instead of like talking about how this event was fired in the backend and how it might or might not be ending up here right now. Like, let's fix this later. For now, this is the data we have.
Absolutely. I think it also, this phrase also applies to data. When I was creating the product strategy 1 year ago for my group, it was the same. So at some point we said, okay, how can we identify, let's say, 2-3 big bets to prioritize for the next couple of years? Then we look into data. And then quickly, okay, what about this? What about that? So whatever data you have now, if you are more or less confident, just stick to that, because it will also evolve. Data evolves always. You get new ways into looking into that. You get new metrics. So data is like a decision, essentially. Same approach. All right. I will not spend too much time on prioritization. I think there was a talk not long time ago, airfocus as well, about prioritization. Miro uses OKRs. There are many books and talks and articles about OKRs. We use OKRs on the company level, and they cascade to teams. And the company level OKRs, they are based on the painted picture. So as a company, we expect to be there in 2-3 years. So think about the Amazon style painted picture. And then teams also take the OKRs from the company for the year, and they think how they can contribute to that. I think the learning that I want to share here is that you want to get to the position when you have only one objective. Not even 2-3. 2-3 is the max, but one. It's really, really hard. And usually if you don't have your team or company strategy, it's not possible. If you don't have knowledge about the area with the team or company, it's not possible. So only after you go into, like, let's say 2-3 quarters, then you will be able to say, okay, for our strategy, one objective done in a good way, good quality, and that's enough. Some learnings based on mistakes that Miro did. As I mentioned, I work on the ecosystem. So we deliver the platform with APIs, SDKs to developers, and they build great experiences to our users and customers. So at some point when we needed to relaunch the platform to deliver the platform 2.0, as we call it, we had the OKR, which was called Prepare to Launch Platform. And that was a terrible mistake because it didn't bring any kind of focus and prioritization. So everyone could say about what needs to be done for this objective, and they can use it for their own needs. So the team was not aligned at all. And another big learning, I think applies to any company, is that we tend to sometimes forget that metrics could be lagging and leading. If you have a lagging indicator, it means that there is risk that you will not be able to say, based on my initiatives, here is what improvement I'm bringing. And if you don't have that, it's not only that you don't have the focus and you reduce the speed of delivery, but also the team spirit goes down because the team doesn't see the sense of progress. There is no celebration. And then when the opposite happens, it's so much more fulfilling for the team to be working on the common goals. So that's the prioritization, and the final bit, the dependency management. So the final piece of equation, how you can sustain the speed of delivery. And dependency is simply a constraint that you don't control. And we see that it comes from different forms. A lot for my team, it comes from legal. So you like the solution, the technical and product and design solution strategy, but then legally, we are not aligned. And then you need to go to step one and then do the solution again. The way we approach dependency, I mentioned that when I talked about PADs, is that dependencies are mentioned in already PAD 0. So you already think, okay, if you want to solve this problem, this is dependency we expect. PAD 1 has a big portion of that. So you have a big dependency and mitigation plan mentioned in the PAD 1, which is solution discovery. And what helps identify those dependencies is usually some kind of approach of embracing the tension. Not sure about you, but sometimes early in my career, I was making those mistakes that I would develop together with my designer a solution, and I bring it to engineers only in the end. So essentially, here is what we need to do, just do it. That's not the right approach. You don't have this tension. You need to engage engineers and legal in the beginning. And then they will mention what they think as a concern. Then you identify all the edge cases, possible blockers, and risks. And I think everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So you need to have a plan B. So if you are not doing this, if you're not able to deliver this kind of solution for the problem, then what do? You need to have a plan B. All right, I think we covered quite a lot. I will just wrap up with the summary. How Miro approaches product discovery and delivery. First of all, we split them. We have separately discovery and we have separately delivery. And also, we separate problem discovery from solution discovery. And then to structure these phases, we use PADs. And important that PAD, as I mentioned, can be just one pager, created in 10 minutes, but still it brings all team members to the same page. And then really important to keep the team aligned and focused to sustain the speed of delivery. I cannot emphasize it more. So I want to finish even with this kind of phrase. I want to leave you with this. Always drive for decision. That's your main job.
I agree. Very interesting.
Thank you.
I was gone there for a second because the webinar software decided to throw me out of here. So apparently I was asking too many questions, but I saw you still doing your thing on the Miro board. So That's good. Very reliable Miro software. That's nice. We do also still have a couple of questions, and I want to start with a broader question from Alexander, who's asking, how can you teach your teams to actually do what you just described as a good scaling discovery, right? Is it like some kind of process that you go through for everybody to like be aligned on? Is there like an external certification? Is there like if I don't do what you just presented or parts of it or adapting it to my organization, but I want my teams to get there, like where do I start? How do I get there? Maybe you can say a couple of words on that.
Yeah, it's always about several things. It's the culture, it's the process, and it's also motivation. So the process is easy, right? You just write some kind of a Confluence doc, and you describe how everyone should be approaching product development. You give a template. We have templates, definitely. And culture-wise, it's not only the product managers or teams that are doing the product reviews, it's also the more like product leaders that are doing those. And they're doing those for even product strategies. So let's say my manager, who is head of ecosystem product in Miro, he already did two, we call it platform P strats, so platform product strategies. And they go through product review. So that's one, more like process and culture, lead by example. And finally, the motivation. If you have the motivation a little bit attached to people running those product reviews, and not because they run just for the sake of running, but as a way for you to assess the speed of delivery. That's how we do it. We know that, okay, the team delivered the PAD 0 last quarter, this quarter PAD 1, and next quarter we already see the feature or some kind of initiative live. So how much time it takes in between? And if someone is not doing PAD 1, PAD 0, then there is a missing bit, right? And then if you have a little bit, it's not that we measure performance and we give score based on this kind of running PADs, but it's a way for us to inform and have visibility of what the team is doing. Yeah, does it answer the question?
I think I need to check. Alexander, you probably need to say if you feel like this answered the question. For me at least it did. And if I can give one tip just from a very personal level, I think you can improve the decision-making speed first. Like if you're like, because a lot of things also will follow from this, because you will realize, we're spending a lot of time discussing these things, preventing us from making a decision. So like working on this like culture of making a decision in the face of uncertainty, that's something you can very easily train. Like you can start with like low stakes decisions, that are not being like, that's not going to put the whole business at risk. Like, we're going to move everything to this new infrastructure. Everybody agrees. Okay, let's go. And then the whole system goes down. But maybe you can test like in a less used feature, and you just like, we don't know for certain, but we're going to make this decision. Let's see how it ends up. Like you can train your decision-making nerve basically.
And I think decision-making can be easier in some other companies. So let's say when I worked at booking.com, most of the decisions were made just based on experiment results. So we had more than 1,500 experiments running at the same time.
That's awesome.
And then someone says, I want to make this decision. And then it's like, okay, what is the experiment result? And it's easy. It's like, is it doing good, not good? And that's how you make a decision.
Yes.
I think Miro is a little bit different and complex in its own way. I think even if you look at our persona, it's really hard to say what is our persona. It can, like, for example,
only product managers, Sultan. Only product managers, nobody else.
Yeah, our persona is more like based on, as our CEO says, is the mentality, is the builder, creator persona. But it's not like a designer. you cannot put this persona in really specific terms.
Yeah.
And that's also part of the complexity.
Yeah, that's true. Talking about complexity, there's one question from Nicole about delivery function. And I think it came up when you were talking about the difference between discovery and delivery. Maybe you can talk about Miro, like how you divide responsibilities between discovery and delivery, like within a team or within or between different teams, but also obviously your previous experience. How to like divide the process on different shoulders or not divide the process.
And divide, meaning with your engineering design counterparts, or
yeah, for example,
yeah. It depends also on type of problem that you want to solve, but in practice we see that PAD 0, which is product or solution, the challenge and the opportunity and the problem discovery, it's mostly product and design. And even when I see people deliver the PAD 0 or they share documents, it's done by mostly product and design. But 2 weeks ago, I did PAD 0, and I had to have engineer in the room because it was so much dependent on the technical solution, and it was so much potentially impacting the performance of Miro, which we don't want to impact. So it depends, but probably more or less on average, PAD 0, product design, and PAD 1, solution discovery, is everyone. And more like culture traits of Miro, it's collaboration. It's one of our DNAs. What I saw sometimes is that you come to the problem solution discussion, and then the product manager says, that's our plan, that's why we believe that's a good plan. And then there is like the engineering counterpart starts asking questions that that sound as if the engineer was not on the same page. And what happened at that point? One of the executives said, "Oh, that doesn't sound like a collaborative exercise that you did. So let's stop here and come back when the whole team is aligned and comes with a common decision."
Yeah, what I also sometimes feel is like that while you're collaborative both in discovery and delivery, it's like who's riding the horse and who's being pulled by the horse kind of changes, right? Whereas in discovery, like oftentimes, I know that Marty Kagan, for example, says engineers are the best in discovery, right? Because they know solutions that nobody else knows. I still feel like discovery is often driven by like curious product managers and designers, while like delivery is driven by engineers and engineering leaders. Both are contributing though. Like the counterparts are always there to give their perspective, but like that's oftentimes how I experience it in a way.
Yeah, I think that's true. But the discovery is, again, in Miro is split into problem and solution discovery. So in solution discovery, engineers are on board. I think that's good because if you do only delivery engagement with engineers, then there will be lots of questions and lots of problems that you face. And I was in teams before where it was happening, and I think it's a good question when you want to engage engineers or the rest of the team. It should be not in the beginning, maybe for most of the project, but it shouldn't be in the middle as well. It should be closer to the beginning.
Yeah. I think we have one last question that we can go through before we need to wrap it up, so everybody can take their breaks before the next meeting. And it's about metrics for the discovery process. So the question is, what discovery process metrics do you use in Miro? I want to reframe it a little bit to go around like, what should I measure in order to know that I'm successful at delivery, in a way of like, is it number of experiments? Is it like some sort of experiment result? Is it some sort of process measurement, some sort of time measurement, number of decisions? Like, what are the kind of metrics you can think of in order to define if my product discovery is running well?
That's more like product operations question or like product organization question. And we don't have any strict metrics for that. But what we do is, let's say the company wants to impact number of new users in Miro. Just imagine this is the year goal. And then what we do, every single discovery can be graded if it's contributing to this goal and by how much we expect this will impact the goal. And this is a great visibility tool for executives because they plan what kind of impact they want to deliver with the company. So let's say we bring 10 more million users, but then only one initiative so far contributes to that. So something is wrong. And that's more like visibility and management on the company level. And then for product managers, I think Miro is mostly looking at the metrics within initiatives and the success criteria. And I think I talked about them already. I think one piece that I want to emphasize is that every product review I saw is connecting some initiative goals to company goals, because everything should contribute to that. If you're not contributing to that, or you don't understand how your initiative is contributing to that, it's also hard to understand why this problem should be prioritized.
Awesome, Sultan.
That's how I think.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your thoughtful presentation and your thoughtful answers. And now Sultan's gone. Goodbye. I hope I didn't throw him out. Thanks also everybody else for attending. I wish you a great evening or afternoon or morning, depending on your time zone. You'll get a follow-up email from the lovely team at airfocus. Until then, see you. Goodbye.